This is Terry Kurtz Online reporting on Victor Valley, High Desert, and Mojave River Valley events, activities, entertainment, sports, and history. The rising number of homeless senior residents in San Bernardino County, the High Desert in particular, is being addressed by a number of nonprofit faith-based groups. Senior homelessness is growing at an extremely rapid rate. Statewide, 45% of unsheltered individuals are 50 or older. In 2023, nearly 1,300 adults age 55 and older interacted with the county's homeless response system. San Bernardino and Victorville are the cities with the highest numbers of homeless. In Victorville, that number of unsheltered now exceeds 600. Today, renters need to earn about $36 per hour to pay the rent that averages just under $1,900 a month. This cost is well beyond the reach of hundreds of local seniors who have been forced to join the ranks of the homeless. Their families are often not even aware that their parent or parents are homeless because the elderly do not want to become a burden to their children. Representatives of the San Bernardino County Community Revitalization Department met with stakeholders recently. Community Revitalization is a reworked department that puts community development and housing and the Office of Homeless Services under its umbrella. By combining those two departments, the goal is to create the structure for the county to receive federal and state funding and get it right back out in the community. The department deploys between $50 million and $100 million annually under the Community Revitalization umbrella. During the 2022-2023 fiscal year, they awarded over $18 million in contracts to Continuum of Care agencies and implemented a $1.7 million Encampment Resolution Fund grant to address large-scale homeless encampments, which included the Mojave Riverbed. The department's goals include housing the most at-risk community members and increasing shelter capacity. During the last fiscal year, they served over 2,500 homeless individuals with the Emergency Solutions Grant by way of street outreach, emergency shelter, and rapid rehousing. In San Bernardino County, they're trying to develop a pathway to get folks off the streets and into housing on the same day. In 2022, the city of Victorville began building the largest homeless shelter in the high desert after receiving a $28 million state Home Key grant. Victorville was the first city in the state to receive funding from the program to expand housing for the unsheltered. The Wellness Center campus near Evadale Park will have 170 beds in modular housing units and a recuperative care center, medical clinic, and support services such as job placement and housing assistance. It was originally projected to become operational by the end of 2023. Word this week, at the time of this report, in fact, indicated the first residents may be housed before the end of December. Our San Bernardino County tax collector is encouraging property owners to pay the first installment of their property taxes by the due date of Wednesday, November 1st. The last day to pay without incurring a 10% penalty is Monday, December 11th, 2023. The tax collector's office offers many convenient ways to pay, including online, by phone, by mail, and in person. Electronic payments are accepted online at www.mytaxcollector.com and by phone at 909-387-8308 or 760-241-8829 and can be made using a checking or savings account free of charge. Mailed payments should be sent to SBC Tax Collector at 268 West Hospitality Lane, first floor, San Bernardino, California, 92415, Only payments with a United States Postal Service postmark cancellation on or before December 1st, 2023 will be considered timely. In accordance with the Revenue and Taxation Code, the county tax collector currently requires taxpayers who make an aggregate payment of $50,000 or more per year to submit their payment by ACH, Automated Clearinghouse, credit, or wire transfer. For the county's bank account information, contact the tax collector at 909-387-8308 or email the following address. Continuing from our Only Two Things Guaranteed file, one of the high desert's most historic sites has been acquired by the San Bernardino County Museum for future preservation. The Gold Rush era Oro Grande Cemetery, which dates back to 1852, is home to approximately 132 marked graves and several unmarked graves believed to belong to Native Americans. The cemetery is the oldest in San Bernardino County and is also designated a California Point of Historical Interest. The cemetery is overseen by a team of curators, including curators of history and anthropology, who will research, preserve, and interpret the site. Initial upgrades will include new interpretation and signage, which will engage visitors and increase understanding of the site's significance. In the center of the cemetery is a memorial for Lieutenant Manuel P. Rodriguez, who was killed while serving in the Philippines in World War II. His Purple Heart is on display at the Victor Valley Museum in Apple Valley. Open by appointment only, the Oro Grande Cemetery is located at 1313 Olive Street in Oro Grande. Contact the main museum at 909-798-8608 to schedule an appointment. Terry Kurt's online favorite Halloween memories include Wheel to Wheels 2019 Spooktacular. The highest number of entries in Wheel to Wheel's Spooktacular event, costumed characters, vying for a prize for the best Halloween costume. In fact, the highest number of costumed participants ever in the annual Wheel to Wheel Spooktacular. On the fastest 1/8 mile dirt track around, Cash Cope locks up 2 track championships, KT 100 and Dirt Kart Junior. Stevie Rogers wins yet another Restrictor Main, having already sewn up the 2019 track title. The Cooner, Blaine Coon, coasts to the Dirt Kart Seniors title on a night for a legend to begin. And on this night, this legend begins his inaugural checkered main event in a dirt kart. 8-year-old Zate Legend wins his first main event racing in the Dirt Kart Junior class. Terry Kurtz Online was brought to you by Down Home Grill in Victorville on the corner of Bear Valley Road and Ridgecrest Road. Bid fast and last. World-class auctioneers. Zvalu Quality Truck Body. Family owned and operated since 1954. The Bradco Companies, our area's longest standing full-service commercial brokerage firm. Iwanzak Law Firm. Trial lawyers for serious problems. We Got 'em Tees. Your headquarters for custom screen printing and mastercraft embroidery design. Silverwood. The developers of the Silverwood Master Planned Community support the events, youth activities, and programs of our high desert Mojave River Valley communities. And by the Holiday Inn in Victorville. The Holiday Inn, conference and convention center for the high desert and destination of choice of visitors and travelers to the Victor Valley. Terry Kurtz here, throwing out an invitation for you to catch up with High Desert Sports Activity, your High Desert Sports Report, showing 3 times every day on Victor Valley TV, 7 and 11 every morning, 4 every afternoon. We hope you'll join us right here on Victor Valley TV. The last 2 weeks of Operation Consequences searches and seizures include targeting black market pot farms in Phelan and Hesperia, as well as Apple Valley and Victorville. Raids conducted in 15 different locations countywide the second week in October resulted in the operation's biggest marijuana bust to date. 1,000 marijuana plants and 348 pounds of processed marijuana were confiscated. 18 felony arrests were made. 56 firearms were seized, one of the largest number of guns confiscated in 1 week, in Consequences' 9 months of operations. The rise of Mojave Desert pot farming began shortly after California voted to legalize marijuana in 2016. Ever since, black market growers have flocked to the desert, where endless sunshine and cheap open space offer cartels a near-perfect environment for large-scale farming. The boom in black market pot harvesting farms has left forced labor, cartel gang violence, water theft, and destruction of fragile desert habitat and wildlife in its wake. More than 1,000 marijuana plantations now fill the expanse of the vast Mojave Desert. San Bernardino County sheriff's deputies have come across over 900 illegal sites alone. It was back in February that San Bernardino County crime fighters received the necessary funding to launch Consequences to focus on conducting targeted crime suppression operations, included cracking down on black market cannabis farming. Since its conception, Consequences has apprehended over 900 felons and seized nearly 700 firearms as of mid-October. Operation Consequences concentrates on curbing violent crime, disrupting and dismantling targeted criminal street gangs, and locating and arresting criminals who are illegally possessing, manufacturing, and trafficking firearms. Consequences also involves crime suppression operations and parole and probation checks. There are currently 6,869 parolees at large in California. 456 of these parolees at large are in San Bernardino County. High desert motorists need not drive far to be among the most dangerous drivers in the country. Victorville and Hesperia rank in Consumer Affairs' top 10 worst drivers list as having some of the most accident-prone drivers in the nation. Hesperia has the highest rate of speeding-related accidents among cities with a population of at least 100,000. Hesperia ranks 8th nationwide in overall worst drivers, tailgating Victorville, which ranks 7th worst overall in the dubious distinction of dangerous vehicle operators. Criteria determining the statistical analysis included fatal crashes, fatalities caused by bad driving, fatalities due to driving under the influence, and the prevalence of speeding in fatal accidents. Aggressive driving, careless driving, driving the wrong way in one-way traffic, failure to yield right-of-way, following improperly, improper turns, passing where prohibited, improper or erratic lane changes, as in cutting off or in front of a vehicle, and running a stop sign or traffic light, all factored into the Consumer Affairs study. All factors considered, this report reemphasizes the need to always drive defensively, anywhere and everywhere. Terry Kurtz Online was brought to you by Down Home Grill in Victorville. Call 760-241-4663 for delivery, drive-through, curbside, or pickup. Down Home Grill, corner of Bear Valley Road and Ridgecrest Road in Victorville.
Go!
Bid fast and last. World-class auctioneers. Valu Quality Truck Bodies. Family owned and operated locally since 1954. The Bradco Companies. Joseph W. Brady's Bradco Companies. The High Desert Mojave River Valley's longest standing commercial brokerage firm. We Got 'em Tees. Your headquarters for custom screen printing and mastercraft embroidery design. Silverwood. The developers of the Silverwood Master Planned Community support the events, youth activities, and programs of our high desert communities.
Serious legal problems? Don't go it alone. Contact Iwanzak, trial lawyers for serious problems.
And by the Community Table Restaurant in the Holiday Inn in Victorville. The Holiday Inn, conference and convention center for the high desert, and favored destination for travelers and visitors to the Victor Valley.
You know, Terry, this is almost monumental. I mean, when I think about it, I've lived here a little bit over 35 years. I've known Tim Craig here for almost all of that.
I and a few other gentlemen ran for board election this year, and we formed a group, not just a group of the people that were running, but we formed like an advisory group, which Joe was part of, Dennis Verhagen was part of, Dr. Patel was part of, and it was to try to bring together the issues that we wanted to deal with in the event that we were successful. We wanted to not just have problems, but solutions.
I was chairman of the finance committee for the association in 2005, 6, and 7. At that time, we had anywhere from 10 to 15 members on the board. We were very transparent. Our meetings were open to the public. There was nothing to hide. What I have found since that period of time is, I think, a lack of transparency.
The reason we're having kind of an urgent meeting is because of the things that we had noticed in our campaigning efforts and our ideas about what things could get better. There's been kind of a perfect storm that's come together of some elements that have put us into a pretty kind of scary situation, much more so than just a urgent situation. We have a budget issue, we have finance issues in general, we have reserves which have never been great, never been awful, and they're heading towards awful very quickly. And one of the reasons that that's happening is from something that I think most people are not aware of, is an infrastructure problem with the lake. Everybody's familiar with the quality of the lake water or the health of the lake. We've been working on that for quite some time, and I think it's pretty much a known item. People know where we're at. Very few people know the degree that the infrastructure is crumbling around Spring Valley Lake. It's something that they've been working on, the association, in the background, but kind of quietly, but never really getting their hands around the degree of the problem. So, but to talk about the first issue, we just recently passed a budget. This budget was not disclosed to the association before the day of the vote. Even on the day of the vote, it was not disclosed. We asked for copies of the budget that was being voted upon, and they were not available to us. All that was available was a projection of part of the budget, difficult to read, so no one really had a total idea. And you were allowed to make comments, but because it was a regular board meeting, the board had no obligation, nor did they respond to any questions that were asked. So we got up and we said our question, and then there'd be dead silence, and you would walk back to your chair. And not only weren't the questions answered, they don't even appear in the minutes of the meeting. So there's no record that we even asked those questions. And mind you, the minutes can be read forever, but there's probably only 35 or 40 people in the room, so those are the only ones that heard the questions. They were important questions. None of them were frivolous or ill-considered, and but they went nowhere. From that point on, there was discussion within the board about the vote. They increased the budget by quite a bit from where they had started that morning, and voted upon it, and they ended up voting the maximum increase in the budget that's allowed. And that's a $1.2 million increase over last year's assessment, but it's actually a $2.2 million increase over last year's expenses. That may not sound consistent, and the reason is, last year we overassessed the community by almost $1 million. It's the largest overassessment we've had in a long time. They assessed way higher than we needed by it ended up being about $960,000. And usually, or what typically happens in the homeowners association when that happens, is that money is either refunded to the people that paid it pro rata, or it's applied to the coming year's budget So it's the same as a refund because you're all sharing that money going into the till. This board 3 years ago decided that any excess funds would not be refunded or go towards the next year's budget, but they would be allowed to redirect it as they saw fit. Now, when I say redirect as they saw fit, it is for association activities. It's not, nobody's saying that they're redirecting it in something that's putting it in their pocket. But what is happening is they're redirecting on activities that were never part of the budget, and they go into a fund. They go into our bank account. There's no accounting for the fund, and at some point in time, they usually say, "Oh, we decided we're going to spend it here, here, or here." Unfortunately, the places they say they're going to spend the excess fund are places that are already funded by the regular accounting and reserve system. So that money really doesn't fund those things. They're funded separately. That money kind of goes into a fund of extra cash that just grows on its own. So I had mentioned this to the board several times. This time I brought documentation to this meeting, said I thought it was illegal for them to not be returning the excess to the association. If they wanted to redirect it, they could do so, but they had to get at least a voice vote by the membership to approve that. I mentioned that, handed them the paperwork. They said, "Thank you very much." And then later on, when the budget was finalized, I was told they are still redirecting it as they see fit. The second issue, and believe it or not, this is more complicated in that most people have dealt with financials and budgets. Most people have not dealt with a reserve process, which is unique to homeowners associations. And basically, a reserve process is just a formal way to force an association to put aside funds for the big ticket items that are going to need to be replaced over the years. So if you know that you're going to have to replace a basketball court every 20 years and the cost will be $200,000, every year you put aside $10,000. So when that comes about, you've got the money. By the way, you also invest it, make a little bit more money than that. That's the whole idea of the reserve program. And our reserve program is very misunderstood because it's complicated, but basically there's a number called fully funded. And what that is it's a calculation of how much money should be in our reserve fund at that moment. If we had set aside all the right money in all the right increments, this is how much money should be there, here's how much is actually there, and the percent between the two is our fully funded number. We've been at about 50%, give or take a few percent, for the last 10 years, which is low in my opinion. Because it unfairly penalizes the people that are coming up. It means you haven't charged enough to the past. You're going to be having to charge more to the future. But 50% is what it's been. This year, it dropped under 30 for the first time to 28.6%. And that's a pretty remarkable drop, and that puts us into more of a risk category for a lot of things. For lenders or for other vendors that we deal with, we're now considered at risk because we look like we're low on the funds it takes to maintain the association. What's even worse than the percentage that we're at this year is the projection next year we're going to be at 6.4%, and the year after that we're going to be at 0.6%. Now remember, never been under 50. Usually have anywhere between 1.5 to 2.5 to 3 million in our reserve account at any given time in the last 10 years. That's dropping to 1.7 million this year. Next year it will be approximately 250,000, and then the year after that 15,000. And it only stays positive because the amount of money that we're having to put into the reserves is going up dramatically. It usually goes up 5% a year. It's going to go up 40% each year for the next 2 years just to keep us from going negative. And I would say the average association member does not know that, does not understand that, and does not realize how interlinked that is to some other decisions that have been made that have caused that to happen. Not the least of which is the infrastructure issue at the lake, which has two aspects of it. One is a disclosure aspect, meaning that people that have moved here, really in the last 20 years, should have known about it. It should have been something in the disclosure document, and they haven't. On top of that, the association's been aware of it since 1997. There was a court order that they were responsible for the infrastructure and the timetable and whatever program to put together. And as of this date, there is no program put together other than a Band-Aid stopgap approach. I'll give you an analogy. It's like finding out you've got cancer, and rather than going to the doctor and finding out what stage you're at, we immediately started treatment, even though we don't know whether we're stage 1, 2, 3, or 4. And that's what's been happening for years and years and years. We forced the association to get that assessment. They hired, at their choosing, they hired a professional organization to assess the condition of the lake, paid a lot of money to this group. They came back with some horrific numbers that said that the short-term costs could be between $8 and $30 million, and the long-term costs could be over $100 million. The association got this, and they immediately said, well, this can't be right. Now, if I went to a doctor and he said, you've got stage 4, and I said, I feel too good, I can't have stage 4, this can't be right, what do? You get a second opinion. You don't just stick your head in the sand. We decided to stick our head in the sand for 3 more years and wait and see how things come out the next time we lower the lake. Even though the problems we have not only are bad, they are deteriorating at a worse and worse rate, where the amount of money it's going to take to repair it goes further and further up, causing more and more damage because of the delay.
Any concluding?
Well, there are 2 things. First, these are numbers that we didn't glean out of thin air. These are all based on association documents that when we're presenting this on Saturday morning, on November 4th, you'll see all the information, all gleaned from association documents. The other thing is, it was important to me that we share all of this with the board and not make this a gotcha for them where they haven't seen any of it. Because when we discussed doing this, I said, I don't want to just be planning our re-election campaign a year down the road. I want things to change now. So let's give the board the benefit of the doubt and see if we can bring them along and be our most convincing selves. And we have had some moderate gains on some peripheral issues. The bigger the issue, the more entrenched it seems. It's kind of baked into other things, and we haven't been able to penetrate. But I have put everything in front of the board that I'm presenting to you. They've seen it. No one's disagreed with the content or the interpretation. They just feel that the approach they're taking is sufficient, and it surely is not.
Terry, what I think Tim is saying, and I've seen this. Believe it or not, we help form Spring Valley Concerned Property Owners, and for 11 years we had a great working relationship. And all of a sudden, when I started asking questions, the board, the general manager, decided to make it a personal issue, and they wouldn't respond. But then I would get these letters from Mr. Tinley, and Steve, I hope you watch this, because you know what we'll do this next time around. I will tell the board, and this new chapter in Spring Valley Lake is not personal, okay? It's factual, okay? I think the American public is tired of not hearing from their elected officials in Washington, from the state, whether it be the county or the city that they live in. So I think this is going to be an exercise where Tim has peeled back this onion, and I mean countless hours. And, he puts the information together, he goes to the board, and they just say, poo-poo, we don't have to do that. Well, they're not going to do that anymore. Okay, because the power of social media and the power of the video, Tim's looking at this thing, Ricky Zimmerman's looking at this thing, Dennis Verhagen, I'm looking at it. We have to do what's right for the association, now, not what's right for Tim or Joe.
The Victor Valley Community Services Council is offering free homemaker services, transportation, and activities for seniors ages 60 and older with mobility challenges. Residents can join the group in its monthly shopping trips, where they pick you up, take you home, and assist with lifting and carrying items. For more information or to reserve your seat on the bus, call 760-243-9646.
Terry Kurtz Online was brought to you by Down Home Grill in Victorville on the corner of Bear Valley Road and Ridgecrest Road.
So.
Bid fast and last. World-class auctioneers. Solid quality truck body. Family owned and operated since 1954. The Bradco Companies, our area's longest standing full-service commercial brokerage firm. Ewanzak Law Firm. Trial lawyers for serious problems. We Got 'em Tees. Your headquarters for custom screen printing and mastercraft embroidery design. Silverwood, the developers of the Silverwood Master Plan community, support the events, youth activities, and programs of our high desert Mojave River Valley communities. And by the Holiday Inn in Victorville. The Holiday Inn, conference and convention center for the high desert and destination of choice of visitors and travelers to the Victor Valley. That's a wrap on this edition of Terry Kurtz Online. On behalf of Victor Valley Television Productions, thank you for watching. We hope to see you again next time around.